Hi everyone, and welcome to today's event. We'll be talking about how you can use Edulastic for science instruction. And this webinar is part of our Fall Teacher Talk webinar series that centers around teachers sharing their experiences and tips for digital assessment. The series focuses on using digital assessment for particular subjects, with this particular event focusing on science. I'll be your host today. My name is Ileana Betancourt, and I work here at Edulastic. For 6 years, my job has been to help connect educators to great resources, and my background is in science, so personally, I'm very excited for today's event. I'm here in the office joined by my colleague, Leslie Tyler, in charge of marketing and partnerships here at Edulastic, and we're happy to answer any questions and be here for you throughout today's event and beyond. So before we begin, I have a couple of housekeeping announcements. Please make sure that you have access to the chat window. So you'll see your chat, hopefully, and you'll have the option right above your chat where you enter text to switch that from all panelists to attendees or everyone. So go ahead and make sure that's set to everyone so that you can chime in throughout today's event, and let's test that out. So please go ahead and enter where you're tuning in from and what you're excited to learn about today. And I encourage everyone, participants and panelists, to chime in here. Oh, another California, Tennessee, Clovis, Fresno, Maryville, Tennessee, Phoenix, Arizona, to Fresno. I wonder if you both know each other. Okay, awesome. Big crowd from Fresno. New Jersey, awesome. I'm originally from Philadelphia, right by New Jersey. Memphis, Tennessee, awesome. Cool. Yeah, immediate feedback is definitely a really great benefit of digital assessment. Okay, awesome. Everyone's familiar with that. So we're going to go ahead and start a poll so we can get to know who's in the audience a little better. And while Leslie starts that poll, I do want to mention that we want this event to be somewhat conversational. So please go ahead and ask questions throughout today's event. And if we can't get to them right away, then we'll certainly address them at the end of the presentation, where we'll have more formal time for questions and discussion. We want to make this time as valuable as possible for you. So on this poll, you'll see questions about how familiar you are with Edulastic, what level you teach, and what subject you teach within science. And we're also asking you to answer if you use NGSS with your instruction. So are people answering? Should be a quick poll to answer.
Middle and high school.
I'm hosting, I can't though. Not that I would. Okay, it looks like we have some people who have an account, some people who are very comfortable with Edulastic already, some people who, a lot of middle school teachers, a high school teacher. Get on to the other ones. Earth science and other. Environmental science. Okay, I see that in the chat now.
All NGSS.
And everyone teaches in accordance with NGSS. Great. I don't know about you, but I definitely found NGSS to be pretty comprehensive and a really great set of standards. Very focused on learning and modeling and practicing real science. Cool. All right, so why don't we end the poll? Thanks. Okay, and then we're going to move on to the next slide. Let me go to the slides. Here we go. Okay, so I'm also thrilled to present our featured presenters for today, who are educators from all across the country who have been using Edulastic with their science classes. I'll tell you a little bit about them each right now, and when they go to take their turns on the panel, then they can also share a bit more about themselves if they want. So our first presenter today is Stephen Humble, who is a 7th and 8th grade science and algebra teacher in Arizona. He's been teaching there for 5 years, and his primary areas of instruction include astronomy, biology, chemistry, physics, and geology. He's been using Edulastic for 3 years, so he's quite a veteran with our product, which is awesome, and likes it because it helps save him time, ensures quality, and is accurate and provides reliable assessment data that he can use to drive instruction. Our second presenter today is Mike Ruffin, and he's a curriculum integration technology teacher at Hampton City Schools in Hampton, Virginia. And he provides training for teachers in integrating technology into their lessons. And before this, he taught high school science and math for 14 years and also middle school science and math for 2 years. He also is a science coach for 2 of the high schools within his district. Jason Anderson teaches 8th grade science at Clark Intermediate School in Clovis, California. And he's been there for 11 years. And before that, he taught 7th grade science for 4 years at Sierra Middle School in Lincoln Unified District in Stockton, California. And he is a member of the CUSD Science Curriculum Design Team, which he's been a part of for 3 years. And his wife is also a teacher. And then Michelle Harris, who will be our 4th presenter today, has been teaching biology and chemistry for 20 years. And the last 16 have been at William Blount High School in Maryville, Tennessee. She's a co-sponsor of the Student Council and Beta Club, and she's the instructional technology coach at her high school and serves as a district-wide technology trainer. So we have a lot of great experienced teachers here who I'm really excited personally also to hear from, and the creative and practical ways that they've been using digital assessment for science. For those of you who are brand new to Edulastic, Edulastic is an online platform where you can create and assign assessments to students. You can either find assessments or questions from the item bank and pull them together to create an assessment, or you can create your own. You can also upload documents to create assessments, and you can also add multimedia. From the assessments that your students take online, there's a multitude of data that you can look at, and you don't have to grade, which saves you time. And so there are a lot of benefits, which you'll learn more today. And we're based out of Fremont, California. So Edulastic has a number of technology enhanced items and question types that you can use. You'll see examples of them from our featured presenters later. I wanted to point out some of the basic ones that you'll find, so multiple choice, multiple selection. You might have heard of these kind before. And then you can go more in depth to other science technology enhanced items that you might find useful, which include passage-based. We can include some sort of scientific text and ask students to answer questions from there. Drag and drop, label an image, drawing response, which is an exciting new question type that we have, are some of the ones that I wanted to point out. And then some of the more popular question types for science are some of the more basic ones, which I think is important for those who are starting out to remember that you can use basic questions for your assessments and then dig into some of the more complicated ones. Most of the questions that you'll find in the item bank are multiple choice. Then you'll find essay, multiple selection, text drop down, drag and drop. And the NGSS standards are all uploaded and present in Edulastic. So when you create a question type, you link it to one of these DCIs, disciplinary core ideas, that are loaded up here. And as you can see, middle school physical science 1. So here are some of the DCIs for that. And that allows you to make sure that you're hitting all the different topics that you need to hit, and adds rigor to your instruction with students. And you can get really state specific too. So if your state has specific standards that you're trying to adhere to, you can find that state and the standards that are already uploaded. And if they're not uploaded, you can talk to us and we'll try and help you get them added to the platform. And then I wanted to point out that last spring, we had a few different experts add a bunch of new questions and assessments that cover all the middle school NGSS standards, and then also half of the high school NGSS standards. So you'll find Edulastic certified items in there from these content experts who created those questions. as well as any other content by other teachers who have created assessments and shared their content within the item bank publicly. And hopefully, if you're new to digital assessment, you'll find that a lot of clutter, I like this little cartoon because it shows a lot of clutter can be really cleared up when you get things online. You don't have to worry about losing papers. You don't have to worry about having to squint to see student handwriting. It's all right there. It's immediate and very present. And saves you time. And now I'm going to hand the baton off to Stephen Humble, who I'll just let him take it away. He's going to talk about how to analyze results and get actionable information from your data.
Thank you very much. Hi, everybody. So my name is Stephen Humble. I teach 7th and 8th grade science and algebra in Levine, Arizona, which is a suburb of Phoenix, where it's finally cooling off. So what I wanted to share with you today, I'm going to focus mainly on my science. I want to show you how I use my Edulastic platform and how I use assessment results and how I use the software basically to get information quickly that I can then use and actually do something with, which is really the whole point of giving assessments. It's not just to, you know, just get a score. We want to actually do something with it. So let me share. So I'm hoping that everyone should be able to see my screen now. Yeah, so you should be able to see my screen. So this is an example of a quiz that I gave recently. This was a 18-question quiz covering one of our state standards, classifying elements, compounds, and mixtures. Now, I teach in Arizona. Arizona has not yet adopted the next generation science standards, unfortunately, so I'm going to be working off the Arizona standards. They are a little old. I think they're 14 or 15 years old, but you know, they're still good. So we take a look here. This is it's called the live class board. This is what I look at. I look at it while the kids are taking their assessment, and then I look at it, you know, when we're all done. This gives me a couple of good pieces of information. The really nice thing is this is flexible, so you can sort of analyze data in any which way you want. So the first thing I look at up here is the bars right here. The blue line can be helpful because it tells you how long they're taking on a question. So the average time that kids are spending on that question. So it lets you know, are they rushing through it or are they struggling and not get it? So for example, question 1, they spent a lot of time on it, but didn't really get it. Then it gives you the percentage of students who are answering correctly in green. We're getting partially correct answers in yellow and incorrect answers in red. If you give an essay type question that you have to score, you'll see that in blue, all right? Scroll down here and you can take a look at the actual individual student results. This to me is the most valuable portion of this. So I have a 79% average, all 27 of my students submitted. And as I go through here, and by the way, my students' names aren't bowl and dice. There's a mode you can turn on that will allow you to present to your students, and I believe it's a premium feature, but allows you to present it to your students and it pulls their names off. So you, excuse me, I'm sorry. So you wouldn't be able to, you know, they can't see each other's names. So that way it lets you talk through exactly what's going on without, you know, breaking confidentiality. So I can go through here and I can basically say, when I do these, I look for who needs my help, who needs more work with something, who do I need to pull into a small group, and you know, what do I do next? So it's sort of where are my students? What do I do next? What goals do I set for them? So when I take a look at this, I've got several students in the 98%, 100% range. Got a few students here, round dice at 72%, 64% is a little bit of an alert. And then I've got a student right here at 20%, 6.67 out of 32. So, you know, I might go through and see, okay, I've got 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 kids that I might need to pull for a small group instruction. Our district does standard-based grading, so they get an opportunity to reassess on a standard later on once I've remediated them a little bit. So this is one way to look at it, and it gives you sort of the top-down view. This is what any test software, any grade book, this is what you see, how they scored. We can get into a little bit more detail. This mode right here, if you click right here, tells you for every question you identify a standard. So this particular assessment hit 2 standards. It tells me how they're doing on each of the 2 standards. So this particular one right here, PO4, classify matter in terms of elements, compounds, and mixtures. PO5, classify mixtures as homogeneous or heterogeneous. So I can see that we're doing better with that. So it gives me, again, more information. One of the nice features too is that I can click into these individual questions and really get a sense for what they don't understand. This is, I think, the power to the online assessment. This is the power to doing it in a digital way, because I can see this before they even leave the room. So for example, I'm going to go to question 11 here. They spent a lot of time on it. The average time was 1.5 minutes on it, which, I mean, doesn't sound like a lot of time to me, but it's compared to the rest of this assessment, it was. So I can click in, and obviously I can review each individual answer. All right. So this question has to do with basically identifying which of this list is an element. So they had to understand that the smallest unit of an atom is the element. Now, I can go through here and I can click on the individual ones and see how they did. The real power here, where is it? There it is. Okay, the real power here, and it doesn't show it here because I'm in anonymous mode, you would see a button that would filter out only your incorrect answers. So you could see all of the wrong answers. So that's one way you can go through and drill down by the question and see exactly what kids are getting wrong. The other thing that might make it a little simpler is this mode right here called Express Grader. Express Grader is pretty cool for multiple choice, multiple answer, numeric questions, the ones where there's just an answer. It's not a drag and drop type question. It takes a second to load, but it lets you see a grid of the kid and then which answers they're picking. So for example, in question 11, I can see that we seem to be, for the most part, getting D as a correct answer. And we seem to be getting G as a correct answer. Most of us are hitting that. Some of them are getting C, some of them aren't getting C, and some of them are just guessing. So it lets me really see where our issues are, where our errors are. So like a student right here just clicking everything. So it lets you drill down on what exactly it is they're getting wrong. So if I were to look at this and I can see, all right, they are all for the most part getting C, they're all for the most part getting D. We're struggling with G, and some of us are confused thinking E is an answer. All right, whoops, hang on just a moment. I'm gonna stop sharing for a second because I think it's gonna show my kids. I'm gonna pause sharing. I just wanna make sure kids' names don't show up. All right, I should be back now.
Yep.
Okay, perfect. All right, sorry about that. I just wanted to make sure I didn't break confidentiality. So we go to question 11 here, and like I said, I know that they're getting C, they're getting D, and some of them are getting G, but they're not really getting G. So, and one of the most common wrong answers I saw was E, and I did see a few Fs. So I can look at this question now and go, okay, I'm not sure why they're getting sulfur. Is it possible that they don't know sulfur is an element, they don't know how to read their periodic table because they have one for this quiz? For E and F, I know exactly why they're picking that answer because they see carbon and they know carbon is an element. They're not putting together that it's carbon dioxide or carbon monoxide and that it's a compound, not an element. So in the process of about 2 minutes, I'm able to drill down and identify exactly what misconception they have, because a lot of them got this one wrong. And I can spend a 5-minute warm-up addressing this misconception so that I know that they understand where the problem is. Before, if it was on paper, I got to go through and score them all, and I don't have any data that I can then do something with. I could even, depending on how quickly they do this, I could have that discussion before they even leave the room from taking the quiz. So a lot of the power of this of Edulastic, and one of the reasons that I like it so much, is because I really don't believe in just testing for the sake of getting a grade in the grade book. It is, do they understand what I'm teaching them? Where do I go from here? What do they need to know? Have they reached their goals? And so a lot of the power of this is being able to identify really quickly, have they hit their goals? Have I, as an instructor, given them the correct information? What do I need to fix before I move on? Instead of just, oh, well, I guess you failed it, moving on. So that, to me, is how I use Edulastic to really drill down into specific questions and to see what they know. So yeah, with that, that's really how I use it. So, okay.
Great.
Are there any
Thank you.
questions?
Any questions for Stephen? If you realize you have a question later, you can also ask later. But now's a good time. No? Okay.
I'll go ahead and stop my screen share, and thank you very much.
Thank you. That was a really great overview, and I think it helps to get at the meat and the core of why digital assessment, as Stephen said, is so powerful. You can see that immediate data and do something with it right away, support students where they need more instruction or support. Let me go back to sharing my screen. Okay, so that brings us to our next presenter, Mike Ruffin, who is a curriculum integration technology teacher at Hampton City Schools.
Hello, everyone. Again, my name is Mike Ruffin, and I am so excited to be here with you this evening. And basically, my role here at Hampton City Schools is to help teachers to integrate technology in their lessons. And one of the things that we're always checking for is, are students mastering it? And when they're not getting it, what are we doing to help them? And so in our district, we really feel that Edulastic is the perfect tool to do that and really help to really see at what level that the kids are getting it. And so what I'm going to do is just show you some of the Edulastics that we have here in our district and how we've created those questions and how we're using them for biology. So I'm actually going to go ahead and share my screen. All right, and the first one that I'm going to demonstrate is one of our genetics demos. All right, so one of the things we do is we use the matching questions, and some people might say, well, this is just regular matching, but what we love about it is we're able to add a distractor so that a lot of our students, they guess, they try to just pair things together, but adding that distractor. So here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 questions. Here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So adding that extra distractor sometimes helps to really check to see, are the students just guessing? Or are they just using chance to try to get the right answers? And this is really easy. Kids just drag the information to the right spot. It's very straightforward. And for those that are new to Edulastic, this tool up here, I can actually switch between questions. I can also flag questions for review. This tool, question number 2, with this question, we're able to actually have students hover over specific words and choose answers. So here we've asked students to read the story and select all words that are phenotypes. So those are the physical traits. So a lot of our students, especially some of our at-risk schools, they're really struggling with reading. We have students that are, some of them below reading level. And so what we do in our district is we're starting to ask teachers to add more questions where students have to read. And with Edulastic, with the sentence response, it really helps students to read and to look for details. And so basically students are clicking on the answers that they think are correct. And there's also incorrect ones that are built in here. So again, this is a great tool to help students who are at risk, those who are struggling readers, to help build that reading while they're also building the vocabulary as well. A lot of times we think this is only for English class, but we're really trying to do more cross-curricular where we're actually embedding those things in our lessons. Okay, so what I actually did with this question, I actually did this one twice. And so with here we have the text drop down. And sometimes what we do in our district, we create the same question, but use multiple Edulastic tools. So this one's going to be the drop down. So here, Gregor Mendel was the father of genetics. He noticed that dominant genes, dominant traits masked over, covered up the recessive. So again, a student that might need more accommodations, might need more scaffolding, this is a way to help give them that support. Now I'm going to take that same question, and now the students actually have to type it in. So this is for more honors class, a class where we're again removing some of that extra support. And now again, they have to demonstrate at what level are you really getting this information. Okay, this is my favorite one. This one is called classification. In science, one of the issues we have is that students have a lot of information, but they don't know how to organize it correctly. And so again, the classification helps students to take what they've learned and put it into groups. So here we have homozygous versus heterozygous. Homo means same. And so all they do is click and drag the correct answers into the right boxes. So we really love this tool, really, really helpful. So what I'm doing is just modeling some of the questions that we've created in our district. This is the matching tables where they just click on the items that are correct. So purebred, hybrid. Again, these are not hard to create. Once our teachers are getting more and more comfortable, they're starting to see, wow, how can I actually use this? And we actually encourage teachers to use the backward design model. So basically we start with the end in mind, and then we start working backwards to how we're going to create our question in order to achieve that goal. And so that's one of the strategies we're using. Anyone that's reading Understanding by Design, that's another focus. This is a resequence question, and basically the way this works is students have to put the choices in the correct order. So here we're going to set up a genotypic ratio, and the order should be homozygous dominant comes first, heterozygous comes second, homozygous recessive comes last anytime I'm setting that up. So this is fun. With this tool, you can not only add words, but you can also add pictures. We've had teachers that have used pictures for succession, for a lot of different things just to show order. And so this is a great tool, again, to check for understanding. These are Punnett squares. Now with this one, this is a drag and drop. I chose to leave the dotted, the box here so that students can actually see where to drag it. For students that actually are a little bit more confident when it comes to this, you can actually remove that. But we found that a lot of our students for genetics, they're just guessing. And, oh, I saw it on the board one way, so I'm just gonna kind of throw it in there. And so some of our students, they struggle with allele versus genotypes. And so having them choose the correct one. This question actually has multiple parts built in it. So here they have to determine heterozygous. What does that mean? They have to choose, do I pull one letter or two letters? And so again, the goal is checking for understanding. Like Stephen was saying, it's not just about putting together an assessment, it's about, am I designing a question that's really helping me to see if they're really mastering the material? Okay, and this is another one. This one, we're again adding more rigor. I'm going to skip through that one. Again, this is the multiple sequence, multiple selection where there's more than one correct answer. Some places call it the hotspot. And so again, we're just checking for more and more understanding. In this question here, we're having kids put in a number, calculating, and there's also the scratch pad. And so with the scratch pad, it has more tools that the students can access if they need to use the ruler, if they need to use the draw it tool. They have all these available for the question. So those students, well, I didn't bring my paper, I don't have a pencil. We got you right now because we have these tools right here, so there's no excuse why you can't solve that problem. All right, and I'm gonna skip through that question. Again, we have more where they're entering information, and then more classification. So what I want to do now is transition to ecology because I want to show you the draw tool. It's the new Edulastic tool, and I'm really excited, and I've been modeling this with the teachers. And so I'm actually going to shift over to ecology and just show you how that tool works. Great. I'm actually going to go down to question number 12. All right, so here's the draw tool. So with the draw tool, what I recommend for teachers, you don't have to have a 15-question assessment. You could have 2 questions, and those 2 questions, there's so much embedded in those 2 questions that they can actually, you can get so much just out of those 2 questions. I'm actually going to show you that. So here I have a picture, and this is the typical food chain. And the first question says, draw arrows between the pictures to show the correct flow of energy. All right, so they're gonna draw an arrow from the grass over to the grasshopper, from the grasshopper to the toad, from the toad to the snake, from the snake to the hawk. Then a lot of times students will stop and they're like, oh, what? I don't see how something, where do I go next? But then here as teachers, we can see if they stop right there, we can say, oh, you didn't understand that the hawk dies. And so that's going to go in the ground, and then the nutrients from the ground go back into the grass, so it completes that chain. So that's question number one. Again, as a teacher, I can assess that based off of how complete or incomplete their answers are when it comes to the drawing tool. Number two, it says label the image. So, you know, our students in our district, we have Chromebooks, so they can use their fingers, but I'm actually going to model how they can type. Anytime we're using the typing tool, I always tell teachers, make sure you tell students to click exactly where you want the word to go. So we know bacteria is a decomposer. So I'm actually going to put the button right here and click, and the text editor goes on the side so you can actually see it. I'm going to type in decomposer, click update, and notice that it puts decomposer right above bacteria. So if you use some other PDF editors like Kami or DocHub, this works a little bit different, but it still works very effective. And so again, kids can label, they can draw, they have all of these features built right into the text tool. Okay, so here I've actually uploaded a word bank. So those students who are who need that extra support, we also have a lot of our inclusion classes that require them to have this word bank. So again, you can differentiate it, add more rigor or less rigor based off of what the needs are for the class. And I'm actually going to end on this question here. Now, you can almost put this question as the only question in the quiz and take the rest of them out. And we've actually had kids do this. Number one, it says draw an energy pyramid. And so I'm actually going to do this with the triangle here. I'm going to take it, and then I'm just going to turn it around. And awesome. I'm going to make it a little bit big. All right. And so I have my pyramid. And for the sake of time, go ahead and draw my lines. 1, 2, 3. All right. So question number one says, draw an energy pyramid and place each organism in the correct pyramid. So, okay, all right. So here's the grass, here's the caterpillar, here's the shrew, and here's the barn owl. All right. So based off this, I can tell, do they understand trophic levels? Do they understand what order that they need to put in? So I've already checked for understanding. Number two, draw an arrow next to the pyramid to show the direction of energy flowing. Is energy flowing up or is energy flowing down? If I see an arrow going this way, I know I need to go back and reteach. That's not good. All right, number three, add the sun. This is so funny because every time we ask this question, students, guess where they always try to put the sun? At the top. And they think, oh, this is where the sun is supposed to be. And so then we have to say, well, this is the pyramid of energy. Does the top have more energy or does the bottom have more energy? Oh, it's the bottom because the grass gets their energy from the sun. So then I have the kids notate there. So again, based off of how they're drawing their picture, I'm actually able to see, are you getting it? Are you not getting it? What areas do I as a teacher need to go back and check? So I don't have to have a 20 question assessment. I don't have to have a 15 or 10. I can have 1 or 2 questions just as draw it questions, and students are able to give me feedback based off of where they're at. And some of our students, they shut down when they see so many questions. So sometimes the draw it tool really helps kids to, oh, I can draw, it's cool, I can relax, no pressure. And then of course you can add more, use the 10% rule to label. So if I'm starting off with 15,000, it would be 1,500, 150 up to 15. So again, with Edulastic, there's so many tools that teachers can use. Again, my favorite is the draw it tool and the classification tool, but there's so many in there that help students with reading, help students to organize information, help students to sequence things in the correct order, and also just checking with the hotspot questions, are you able to pick all of the correct answers? Because some of our kids don't get it. Well, Mr. Ruffin, I picked 2 of the 3. Don't I get partial credit? No, in our district, you don't get partial credit. You have to get it all correct. And so, again, this is just some examples of how you can use Edulastic in the science classroom. And I'm going to turn it back over.
Thanks, Mike. That was a really great overview. And it was so nice to see the walkthrough of the different types of question types in addition to how they apply to science. And this great use of the draw it tool, because again, we just released that in August. So it's fresh and ready for you to use for these types of step-by-step questions. Thank you, appreciate it. Anybody have any immediate questions there? I saw some comments in the chat. Great idea, love this, could have used it today. Hopefully you can use it tomorrow, Rhonda. And great use of the draw tool. So some really great feedback so far. So I will go back to sharing my screen again. 1 second. Okay. Oops. Okay, where's my, here we go. Share screen. Oh, I think that these are links from you, Mike, that people can access.
Yes.
They are. Okay, great. So if you want to check out the demos that he just shared, you can go to these links. We can, could you grab these and share them in the chat with everyone so they can click on them? I think that'd be the best way to share those.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Great. All right, and then let's go back to present mode here. And now I'm going to pass it off to Jason Anderson, who teaches 8th grade science at Clark Intermediate School.
Hi, my name is Jason Anderson. I teach 8th grade science at Clark Intermediate in Clovis, California. We started using Edulastic last year. We are implementing NGSS. We started last year with a partial implementation. This year we are a full implementation district at the middle school level. We do like the fact that Edulastic seems to, we took our functional test for the state of California last year, and the format of our questions seemed to line up with a lot of what the question format is for Edulastic, and there's some great tools in there. So we just thought that we wanted to use that because it did line up well with what the tests will look like from the state, and also to try and make our questions more three-dimensional so that we're hitting content, cross-cutting concepts, and our science and engineering practices. Let's see if I can share screen.
Yep, we can see your screen.
You see that? Okay. So there's a couple of different ways we've done this. One of the cool things that we have done, we've used some of the pre-made questions. We have written quite a few of our own. And our curriculum design team, which Brooke, if you're out there, is helping us to do this as well. She's logged on here somewhere. We found at our district that this has been a great tool. We actually just bought the pro version this year for our school, so we really like the calculator tool, and there's some other tools in there that scramble the questions. You can scramble responses. We really like that piece with the pro version. The biggest thing that we kind of breakthrough for us last year was we figured out how to insert multimedia to these. And I don't know how many of you have heard of the PhET simulations through University of Colorado, the PhET. So here's an example of what that looks like. There is, and I will show you how to do this in a minute. There's an embed code on that website that you can grab and then insert as multimedia into the question and have it run live. So you can actually ask questions of the students. So for example, we just did some multiple choice with this, but we're already talking about trying to have them graph results and actually do almost like an online lab with this and try and get it even more complex and a little more rigor with it. So you can have it actually run. So the question down below, using the intro simulation, find the angle of refraction from air to glass of a ray with an angle of incidence of 30 degrees. So they have to open it, set their angle, turn on their protractor, set it out, get it lined up, turn this on, make sure they're going from the correct medium so they can go back down to the question. What was it, air to glass? So I got to change this to glass. And then my angle of incidence of 30 degrees. So then I can grab this, move this to 30. And then, okay, so what is my angle of Incidence is set at 30, so my refraction angle is at 20 degrees. So then I can go back down here, click my answer, and then go to the next one. So we had a couple of different questions that were using this simulation. Some of these are really good and line up really well with NGSS, some not as great. So again, what is the angle of reflection and refraction from water or glass of a ray with an angle of incidence of 60 degrees? There's other different simulation pieces to this as well, using prisms. You can change this to number of beams of light you want to use. There's lots of different tools. So again, we had used this simulation in class and had a lab that went with it. So this was kind of a check to see, do they really understand it? Can they apply what they have learned and these concepts to an online simulation? Some of the other questions that we've used with this, multiple, click on all objects that reflect light. So if you can see it, it reflects light. So the only one that really should be is a black hole. And then select your reasoning. So it's a lot of what's your evidence, trying to apply those concepts. The drag and drop we like a lot as well for labeling diagrams. So angle of incidence, making sure they understand where these things should be. Incident ray, reflected ray. This one is another favorite. I really like this table. I believe Michael had one of these too, where it's kind of a classification function where you can insert pictures into these and then choose what is this an example of? Is it reflection, refraction, or transmission? And I really like the fact that you can kind of create your own and put your own pictures in here as well. You can insert text and ask them a question about text, because we definitely have seen this with the language arts stuff, especially that's text driven, answering questions on text. So we wanted to kind of add some of these, and we're still kind of playing with it a little bit. Some more text-based questions. Then we had another simulation question on that same simulation, matching. So definitions, and I do, as Michael said as well, I like the fact that you can add more answers than you need. The distractor piece to this, I think, is a good way to increase the rigor. If kids are just kind of process of elimination, trying to guess, it definitely helps you to narrow down to that and make sure that they're not just guessing. The one other, so to kind of show you how we inserted that, so I can get to the edit, screen share, so this should still work. Come on. Okay, so I wanted to kind of walk you through how to insert that. This thing is blocking me. Oh, there it is. Add a question. So author a new question, just to show you how to put that multimedia in there. Even if we'll just do it with a basic multiple selection. So if you click in here in the question, one of these is insert multimedia. So this one, you can insert multimedia here. So you would open that, and then there's your video embed code. Let me stop it. So if I go to I'm just going to pick a random one here. So if you click here in the FET and click the embed, there's the embed code. So embed a running copy of the simulation. You can copy, back, paste that in, insert, and that's all there is to it. It's pretty simple to embed that in there, and then come down here, whatever kind of question you want to use. With that, if you've got the option in the question to embed multimedia, you can insert these FET simulations into it. The one other one I wanted to show you was the graph function, which we used on our last one, which I really was very interesting. We had some tweaking to do with it, but get at it. Oh, no. Should still be good. Again, to try and hit our SEPs with the graph and analyze data, we did have a question. So this was like kinetic energy. This was a physics piece. This hit our unit 2, unit 1 for us. So there's force diagrams. So drop functions for these. So make it so it has a net force of 0. The graphing, this I like. We have the pro version, so we were able to turn on the calculator up at the top, so they were able to plug stuff in and calculate kinetic energy. So this was the graphing question we had. So graph all the following points, connect them with a line. Part of the NGSS standard for kinetic energy is understanding the relationship between mass kinetic energy and velocity kinetic energy, and how because the velocity is squared, it's a different relationship, and understanding that relationship, that it's a linear relationship with mass and non-linear with velocity. So this one was a fun one. We did have issues with, we ended up just having them make a line, so they had to graph that data table, checking to see if they understand how to read that graph, and then graph off of the data table. We talked about at some point too, probably doing it the other way around, showing a graph and see if they can fill out a data table from the graph as well. So that's kind of how we've done it. Again, the FET simulation stuff for us have been a really kind of a breakthrough for us to try and make it a more three-dimensional assessment. And we're still playing with it. Our district is definitely kind of on board with using Edulastic as a district level assessment. That's how our design team's been building our assessments. And we have 5 middle schools in our district that we get together and talk about these things. So we really like the features. And again, we're still playing. This is our first year as pro users, so we're still trying to figure out all the different options with this. But we're excited about this. And as Stephen Humble talked about, the immediate feedback piece is huge for us. You can see what they're doing as they're doing it, who's getting it, who's not getting it. So that was huge for us as well, to get that immediate feedback and let it guide instruction.
Great, thank you, Jason. That was an awesome overview, and that FET tool is available for free, so anyone can grab it and put it into their assessments and embed it for that additional interactive and just overall features. That's really great. All right, moving quickly on, our next presenter is, if anyone has any questions, go ahead and put in the chat. In the interest of time, hopefully you can answer those questions in the chat, or we can answer them at the end. We have about 10 minutes until the end of the hour, so I'm gonna move us along to the next presenter. Second, I can find the screen. Oh, Jason, you had some slides here.
Yeah.
I don't want to cut you off.
All right.
Okay. Let's see. Let's back over. So let's do what we did before, and we'll post these links to these demo assessments or example assessments in the chat. And then, did you want to comment on these, Jason?
That's just, I wanted to
Really
have
good.
like a step-by-step for
Sure.
what I showed you as far as how to embed those
Okay, great.
into the assessment. But that way it's written down if people need a written so that they can do it on their own.
Perfect. So you can revisit these again on the recording on the YouTube channel. All right, and now we're going to move on, and Michelle Harris from Maryville, Tennessee, who's been teaching biology and chemistry, is going to present next. Michelle? Oh, you started screen sharing. We can't hear you though. Let me see. We'll unmute you. Okay, we got you unmuted.
Oh, okay. So can you see my screen now?
We can see your screen. Can we share your video too? Is that okay?
Sure, absolutely.
That way we can see you speaking. All right.
Hi, everybody. I just wanted to share two quick things because everybody else has already shared with you a ton of great things, far more articulately than I could. But I did want to tell you a couple things. I teach chemistry is all I teach now, but I've taught physical science and biology for a long time. And one of the common complaints that is common to the faculty that I have worked with over the last few years, anytime we have any kind of professional development, is there's nothing for math and science. It's all history, or that's fine. It'll work with English, but it doesn't really work with science, or it doesn't really work with math. And a year ago, our system started rolling out one-to-one devices. And we rolled them out at the 9th grade at the high schools. And the math teachers in particular were concerned because how do you do math on the computer? You know, and what I find in chemistry is so much of the time I need to see the work, the mathematical computations that they're doing. And I don't want them to type it in because I want to test that they know the skill, not if they can format subscripts and superscripts. And so there's a couple of great things in Edulastic, aside from the math formatting tools that would allow them to do that, but also kind of address this idea of digital resources not being particularly good or friendly for math or science. And I was going to show you one in this assessment, if I can get the preview to come up. What I find is that kids have an aversion to anything dimensional analysis when we need to convert units. And let's see if I can go to the next question, which is where it is. So here's an example of a problem that we might have to solve that really I would like to see on paper. And we start off with a particular quantity, and they're just going to drag and drop the right value in. And so this is like Michael was saying earlier, I'm testing a couple of different things. They have to choose the right factor. So they've been given a bunch, and they have to know which one is the right one so that the units cross off, and we ultimately wind up with the quantity that we're supposed to. The other thing that students don't like to do is to write down, and I have to find where it is, they don't necessarily like to write down the variables in a problem. And so when we do a worksheet on paper, I may force them to write down, so if we're going to calculate molarity, I may force them to write down the molarity equals, the number of moles equals, the volume equals. But when you get to a situation like online, they won't necessarily do that. They'll see this problem, and they'll just start slapping numbers into a calculator. But with these multi-part and drop-down style questions, I can force the kids to actually identify which variable is which, including having to know exactly what they're solving for. And in this problem, you can see everything's got an X. So they have to know which one it is that they're solving for. So the first part of this problem is to pick out all the variables. And then the second one is actually to solve and enter the text. And I think that those kinds of things are the things that math and science and chemistry teachers complain about, digital resources in math that makes it a whole lot easier for the math and science teacher to do assessments. That's all.
That's great. Thank you for covering that. And anyone have any questions? I'm going to turn on my video again. Because that definitely is something that comes up is, you know, why not have hands-on activities? What is the benefit of doing that digital assessment? So I appreciate you for addressing that, Michelle, and sharing some of those assessments. It's been a really great overview of everything throughout today. I'm going to go back to our screen. I will say for anyone who has to go, thank you for joining us today, and we hope that you will connect with us. If you want more tutorial videos or videos on different features you can use in Edulastic, please go ahead and subscribe to our YouTube channel. You'll be able to check out the video about the Draw It tool, and you'll also be updated immediately when new videos come out about new features or other ways to use digital assessment to your advantage. This was a really full and exciting webinar. I will say that there's just really great information from everyone. So again, I'm going to say thank you, Stephen Humble, Mike Ruffin, Michelle Harris, Jason Anderson for presenting today and all the great information that you provided.